Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Tower Casuals, the Destiny podcast. Sorry, this is going up a little bit late. I'm your host, Josh, as always. Corey is out on a work trip this weekend, but I'm here. I've rallied. I have been really sick the last couple of days. I'm not going to front with y'all. Not sleeping. Had a really, really wicked stomach bug. So really hoping I'm not getting ready to go through norovirus again. I had that right before Christmas, and that was terrible. But that's a risk you take living with a nurse. Gonna be kind of a quick one today. There hasn't been a ton that I feel like we need to talk about over the last few weeks, but we're gonna talk a little bit of the story and how that's progressed, and then we're gonna talk some Trials revamp, and last but certainly not the least, we got to talk about both this new exotic mission that we got that was a secret, and we got to talk Sundered Doctrine, because I haven't had a chance to really dive into Sundered Doctrine yet here on the show. I apologize. Normally, you guys would get a dungeon review, and I've been really behind the ball. The last couple weeks I've been insanely busy. I've had a lot going on, so I haven't really circled back to it yet, unfortunately. But my plan is to talk about it today. So let's get into it. Story. Oh boy. The last 2 weeks, I feel like we have done more in the first act of this episode than we have in the other two episodes combined. We talked about that kick-ass opening to the episode with the seeming death of Eris, Drifter's anguish, and the revelation that Eris is alive in her throne world. But beyond that, like, what do we really do? So last week we go in and we were sent on some errand quests in a lot of ways. Go do these things around the moon and whatnot. You got to get this, you got to get these taken balls, and you got to get kills with the taken balls and this and that. I think it's really cool that they're really leaning into this idea of you need to harness taken energy. It really, if we hadn't already gotten prismatic, I would be kind of convinced that maybe a taken subclass was on the way, with just how much they're really leaning into this. Hey, we're going to utilize taken corruption and this and that. The Guardian can wield it and blah 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 blah. That's kind of like the most pure version of the darkness I feel like we have, is taken energy. So that's a really cool approach to me. I think it's been really interesting. I will say, I think that the events of the story would be hitting a whole lot better if we had the voice lines for Sloane and now Xivu Arath. It's really frustrating that we're not getting the voice lines for them. And, I understand why, but it's really hard in a live service game like this to just, I got to read the subtitles. Now, granted, I play without sound on a lot. In my headphones, just if there's too much going on, it's like sensory overload for me. But I usually try, whenever there's dialogue, whenever I'm doing story content for the very first time at least, I try to have on the audio. So if they ever add the audio in while this is up, if the voice actor strike gets resolved, I will 100% go back and do this. I think this is really cool. But the biggest revelation definitely came at the end of this final mission of Act 1, where we end up at the Court of Oryx, and it is the Echo. The Echo of Command is there. And it's Oryx. It is utilizing the spirit of a past Oryx. An Oryx who doesn't know that we slew him. And right as he's, he kind of admires us when he realizes that we're the ones who did it. Right as it seems like he's about to give us something, Xivu Arath shows up. And I don't know what I expected, but I don't know that I really expected Xivu Arath to, kind of look that way. Xivu Arath shows up, and then, of course, Savathun has to show up, right? And it's, this family squabble and this and that. You kind of get the vibe that Oryx is pissed at her, heretic and this and that, because she's like, oh, we'll bring you back and you can continue leading us in the conquest, which I don't, we have to remember that that is completely against who Oryx is as a character. Oryx, worships the sword logic and this and that. The sword logic is the only way. We were a more powerful creature. He doesn't, his spirit doesn't want to come back and this and that, blah, 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 blah. And you're just given like we've gotten so many other times in hive related activities, escape. Yeah, escape the Dreadnaught. And you haul ass out of there. That's kind of where you're at. Like, Drifter and Sloan are kind of ready to just like go ape shit on the Dreadnought. I'm very interested to see how this story unfolds over the next 2 acts because you got Eris kicking it in a throne world. I would assume Eris does not come back until either the end of Act 2 to help plan like a major offensive, or she comes back sometime in Act 3. Those would be my guesses. But I really, really like the direction that they're going with the story. I like how they're utilizing the Dreadnaught for so much because we've always talked about how live service games like this you have to have a suspension of belief, right? Because of disbelief, I guess I should say. Because, we joke all the time, like, oh, how does this one little section of like fucking Germany keep having like everything happen to it in Destiny? And it's just, I mean, this is a live service game, right? It's like why does anything keep happening, when you've got entire planets? But to see them reuse the moon has been really nice. Specifically, they've been using the Altars of Sorrows a lot this season. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but doing that, one of the things we'll get into this, and one of the things for the exotic SMG you have to go do is do special versions of some of these lost sectors, and I think those are really unique ways to reuse content. They're even reusing a nightmare hunt in here, right? I think that's a cool approach. I've definitely obviously I've seen better, but to reuse content that way, I think is something that should be commended. However, this is something that should have been done years ago. Like, once again, we're looking at this going, yeah, if you would have used this in like seasonal activities, 2, 3 years ago, maybe we wouldn't be complaining as much. Like, I always thought bringing the Leviathan back for Haunted was really cool, but that's kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me in a lot of ways. Because, yeah, you reused an area, but you made it into one giant public event, essentially. That's really what you did. So, I think reusing the Lost Sectors and the Nightmare Hunt and the Altars of Sorrow, I think that's all been really cool. What I'm really liking, though, is what they've done with the Dreadnaught. I think unlocking more of the Dreadnaught throughout the coming is a really good approach. And at the same time, bringing us back to a destination that we last saw in D1, outside of the intro to Kingsfall, obviously, has been really cool because all the same pathways are still there. All the invisible platforms still kind of there. I'm really, really liking it. I think this is cool, but it's different enough. And this echoes what, I don't remember who said it years ago. I want to say it was either Luke Smith or Joe Blackburn. It was one of those guys said this, that if they brought back a destination from D1, if they brought anything back from D1, they wanted to make it feel new and unique to D2. This is the time that they've really been able to do that, because I didn't get that vibe with the moon. I'm going to be totally honest. Like, the moon's not terrible, but it's not great either, in my opinion. We got like 1 or 2 new sections, and kind of tacked on to the end, and we kind of never went there. It's where we land at, and we just kind of never really went back there. I have been very, 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 very happy with what they've done here. I think, and I mean, I guess I shouldn't even bash the moon that much, because you had all the stuff underneath. You had the new catacombs leading to the pyramid ship, and yada yada yada. You had the lost sectors. Like, it's fine. Like, that was kind of a prototype for here. I guess the thing I would complain more about is the Cosmodrome. The Cosmodrome really just felt exactly like it was in D1, and that was very much by design. I feel way different about this. I think the Dreadnaught is what I imagine you revamping a destination for another game looks like. So I'm enjoying it. I think it's been very cool. You guys know I have always loved the Dreadnought. There's one thing I don't like about the Dreadnought though, and that is exploring on foot. Exploring on foot in the Dreadnought kind of sucks ass. But other than that, it's been a good time. It's been a pretty good time. Other than that, you start remembering all the pathways and the most efficient ways to get places. Next week, we're going to get into a lot of the weapon drops that you can get in the Dreadnought. I've been playing around with a lot of them, and I just kind of want to take like next week or the next episode, not next week, but the next episode, to just dive in. Not only that, but like full on. Here's the best way. Here's like all the weapons you can get in Act One. I've had strangely fortunate luck with a lot of my drops, so even got some of those gold shinies in there. Which God, the seasonal weapons look cool, but the gold ones, oh, the gold ones, they look so good. Very, very happy that I've managed to get an AR, a grenade launcher, and a LMG. I don't think I have god rolls on any of them. Maybe the AR I have, but I have normal god rolls because they just shower you in loot, which is kind of the next thing I want to talk about. The loot, the absolute insane amount of loot that you get in the Nether is just, this is how things should be. This is how things should be in seasonal activities. We should have been here years ago. We praised Breach Executable. Was it Breach Executable? I want to say it was Breach. No, it was one of the activities you could do. I don't know if it was Breach Executable, but it was there was an activity in the first Act of Echoes that showered you in loot, just absolutely drenched you in it, and it was basically a glorified public event, but it just drowned you in so much loot you didn't give a shit. Those are the kind of things that you need to have in seasonal activities, especially if we're going to be shifting to 2 seasons a year. And I was having this conversation with our friend Joe the other day, and he says, man, I kind of hate that right as it seems like they're starting to hit their strides with episodes, we're abandoning this mode. Like, they already decided before Revenant even released, yeah, we're not going to do this anymore. This is kind of indicative of Bungie as a whole. We went through this when they did seasons for the first time. I don't know if anybody remembers, but the first season was bad. That was Hunt, Wrathborn Hunts, if anybody remembers. No, not even Wrathborn Hunts. That was Undying, actually. Undying was bad. That was, and at the time we're like, oh, okay, I don't know why people think this is bad. And then like we saw what an actual decent season could look like with Dawn and was like, oh yeah, that was really bad. Dawn was fine. Dawn's fine. It had really good story implications, but just about everything else about it was rough. Then you had Worthy. Worthy was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people. It was the beginning of COVID. We're trapped at home, and the entire season is built around a public event. Arrivals happens that summer, though, and Arrivals was really the turning point because that showed how the world could change and how it should change for seasons. And it was awesome as a result. It was really, really awesome. We were all really happy to see it. They kind of hit their stride. In the next 2 years between Arrivals and Haunted, I think we had like one bad season. And that was Hunt. And Hunt, really only the event was bad. The Hawkmoon mission was awesome. The story of Crow was awesome. I kind of hope that we see a similar thing for episodes. Like, if episodes are going to be this, like what we're getting this season, or this episode, whatever you fucking want to call it, if it's going to be this, but like maybe a bit more story implications, because this has to sustain us for 6 months, along with, we know we're going to get that mid-season loot refresh, a la Into the Light. If you're going to do things like this and have this many story implications and big things moving forward and events that are like the Nether, I still think the events will wear themselves out way too fast. I think they're going to wear their welcome out. You're going to really have to spread out events and maybe spread out some story. I don't know how you're actually going to do this going forward. That remains one of my biggest questions about the future with Frontiers. But holy hell, you have a great blueprint here, I think. in how to do a main seasonal activity. Spoiler alert, it's not something like Onslaught. An Onslaught refresh is something you do further into the season, in my opinion. That's something you drop with the Into the Light style update. Something like this, a big, gigantic area to explore with tons of loot, different customizable difficulties, hiding an exotic mission inside of this are things you should be doing. That is stuff that should be going on within this game just consistently. So if you're going to hide secrets like that, I'm actually kind of hopeful for how seasons could look. Like, this has actually finally shown me a path of how seasons could look, even with less people working there. Like Heresy, if Heresy finishes strong in the back 2 acts, I feel pretty confident saying it would be one of the best seasons ever. Nether is already maybe the best activity we've ever gotten from them in terms of a seasonal or episodic activity. I really struggle to think of something that's on this level. Like, I would say Coil, original Onslaught, maybe the first time we got Battlegrounds and Chosen, maybe Chosen Battlegrounds. I'm tempted to say Heist ones, though, because I think the Heist Battlegrounds were more creative. Yeah, I think both Heist and the Lucent Battlegrounds, I think both of those were really, really well done. And maybe Deep Dive? Yeah, I'd be willing to entertain Deep Dive here. Are probably like your best seasonal events in a lot of ways. And it's very funny to me that 3 of them came in the last year and a half. Yeah, 3 of them have been in the last year and a half. So, like, for all the complaints we have about things like Onslaught Salvation and Contest of Elders, which was really bad, and Kel's Fall, which is a joke of an exotic mission, like, I cannot stress enough how much better the mission for Derezd is. I think, is it Derezd? I actually now I have to look it up because Derezd is the name of a fucking track on Tron Legacy from Daft Punk. I might be derealized. I cannot emphasize how much better that quest line is and how much better that mission is as a whole than Kel's Fall is, than Encore was / is. This is a really cool mission to me. This is something that feels like it is on par with some of the exotic stuff we were doing in the Final Shape or Star-Crossed. I know a lot of people like Star-Crossed. I personally was not the biggest fan of that mission, but I understand why people like it. This falls into that category for me. I really, really, really enjoyed doing this mission. I think this was really cool. I think the build up to it, there is a lot that you have to do to get to this. I like this. This is how an exotic quest, I feel, should play out. You can bang it out in one day. It's not hard to bang it out in one day. It's just going to be time consuming. I enjoyed this so much. I need to do the quests for the intrinsic. So, like, apologies, I haven't really talked about it a whole lot, but this gun is going to have to be something I play with a little bit. I haven't done any of the intrinsics for it, and I believe some of them are time gated too, as a matter of fact, if not all of them are time gated. That is maybe the one thing I don't like about this exotic quest line is that, and I understand it's to pad playing time and get people coming back in Acts 2 and 3 and, make the gun more powerful over time. And it feels like there will be story reasons and story implications for that as a result. But that doesn't mean I like it. This mission overall, though, very cool. You go in, you're doing it on the Dreadnaught, in the Nether, and one of the things that really stuck out to me is when you're grabbing the Taken energy, and it's very reminiscent of, you're shooting with the Taken energy. It's kind of a compilation of everything that you've done throughout the quest line, right? You're killing enemies with the Taken energy to charge it, and then you dunk it a la King's Fall, Torn Between Worlds. And so that's a really cool, nice little callback because we are on the Dreadnaught doing this, blah, blah, blah. And then you get just one of the all-time cool traversal puzzles, I feel, in Destiny. I really enjoyed having to jump back and forth through sides of the Dreadnaught and, like, dodging obstacles in there. It's the Wall of Dicks in the dark. And I really, really liked that. I had a lot of fun with this. I had a lot of fun with this mission. I thought it was cool. I think the boss fight's really cool too. I really like that you are fighting both in the, you know, Taken or in the Ascendant realm, really, and you're fighting in the real world. I like that. I thought it was fun. I think it's a decent amount with two people. I think it's a decent amount of challenge. That's how I played it. I played in a duo with Joe. I think that is fun. The gun is amazing. This gun is awesome. This gun is really, really cool. I love the design of this. It's so hilariously impractical. And I remember when they showed it, I was like, oh, we're probably not going to see this till like the end of the episode because it's going to follow a similar pattern to um, the Kelsfall Shoddy, which I'm completely blanking on right now, but that it was going to follow something similar to that. For all the complaining I do about Kelsfall, I do actually like how the shotgun quest for the intrinsics works. I think that for the intrinsics and the perks and whatnot, I think that was actually really cool. Having to use the gun to shoot specific anchors throughout was really cool. But I digress. This exotic mission is cool. This exotic mission is awesome. I think it's going to be a fan favorite exotic mission as time goes on and it enters the rotator eventually. This is really, really cool. I really enjoy this. I would not mind seeing the Dreadnaught back as a permanent location. Just saying. I don't know if the story's going to allow us to do that, but I would not mind it. I think it's been really cool. And, you know, if you're going to get rewards like Barrow Dyad, this is awesome. This is really cool. Okay, so we've gone over that. I'm doing some math in my head real fast for what all still needs to be covered. Yeah, so something else. We had a request to touch on this from a few folks in the Discord, so I want to make sure that we get to it and that we're talking about it. But the Trials rework has happened. Let me tell you something. This is not bad. I want to be very, 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 very clear. I do not have a problem with this. I'm okay with this. It's cool. The biggest change for me with Trials, this was something that was echoed by a lot of people. Trials is still as sweaty as ever, and that's okay. The amount of loot and rep that you get, even for losing, makes it worth it. Just go in there and torture yourself. Like, my first night that I went into Trials, which was, to be honest, it was I think I went on a Sunday. I don't think I went in until Sunday. I went in on Sunday and had a really rough time. It wasn't a bad time, it was a rough time. I went in with Dealer and Oak. We won a couple matches, but we weren't really, we couldn't get on a streak, and I think we only won like maybe 2 or 3 total. Like, we won more, but I was resetting my card when I was only winning like 1 or 2 matches. And eventually I just was like, okay, I gotta just do this tomorrow. I still walked away with something like 13 engrams, multiple Exalted Truth drops, and I think an armor piece. I walked away with all that, and I was very happy. Just to have all that, I was very happy. I also went back in on Monday and worked really, really hard at it. Got to the 7 wins, not in a row, obviously, but got to the 7 wins. Got to the lighthouse, and again, just absolutely showered in loot. I came away with 8 Assyrian ciphers, multiple prisms. I came away with 1, obviously, though a guaranteed adept. I came away with a couple other drops of it, and even more. I came away with 2. Did I come away with 2 other armor pieces? I think I came away with 2 other armor pieces. I ended up coming away with the helmet, the arms, and the legs this weekend, as well as my guaranteed adept and just an insane amount of drops. Every single weapon that was in the current loot pool dropped for me at least once throughout this. Whether it was me turning in Ingrams or them just dropping for me normally, every single thing dropped. Every single one of them dropped, and I got good rolls on almost everything. That's not even a joke. I got good drops on almost everything. They were all at my level or slightly above. I was very, very, very happy with the Trials rework. So I wanted to read some reactions from the community. I really Ronnie cracked me up. Trials had been live for, I don't even know if it had been live for a full day or like more than an hour or two, and he was just like he was just telling all of us like, oh my god, Trials is showering the loot. It's absolutely showering the loot. And it wasn't even correctly dropping fire team loot. Like, that's something I feel like I have to emphasize. At least for the first day, it was not fully dropping fire team loot in terms of like rep or loot. That might be the most insane statement as part of this. So that was really cool to me. I really, really liked that. Bolt Charge Go Burr was kind of my takeaway from this. If you're playing with Titans, like, oh yeah, you're gonna steamroll everyone. But I will say, I think it also depends on where you're playing and who you're playing with. So for me, I found that when I went and solo queued for console, I was generally having a better time. I was having an easier time winning the games because I wasn't in a Steam pool like I was when I was playing with my friends. And yeah, I did games 1, 2, and 7 with friends, but 3, 4, 5, 6, I just kind of cruised to those. Yeah, I think I went like 4 out of 7 to get those. It was after I got win number 6 that I really started to struggle. That was where I dropped like 4 or 5 in a row, and I was starting to get really frustrated. It was late on a Monday night. I really, really, really wanted to get this done. I really wanted to be able to be like, oh, I made it back to the lighthouse. And this rework is specifically a feel for people like me who just want the loot. We just want the loot. We want the rep. We want to be able to, get the rolls that Saint has for us of the weapons, get the new set of armor, and, hey, maybe pick up an adept along the way. I actually don't really care about. I'm going to be honest. Like, I like the idea of getting an adept. I'm still not the biggest fan. I do think that should be something that is specific for people who have put into work to get there. I appreciate that this passage is there. You're still going to keep running into the same problem, though, of how do you keep player engagement past like the first couple of weeks or past a week where there is a desired weapon. Like Exalted Truth being the first weapon, awesome idea. Awesome idea. I don't know that you get this kind of engagement if Keen Thistle is the first weapon. Or if it's, an older weapon and it's not a brand new weapon. So I think for at least like the first weekend or two a season, Trials is going to be a poppin' place to be with these new passages. Other than that, I think it's going to be kind of a hard sell still, and that was always going to be the problem with Trials. It's always going to continue to be the problem. And I have no idea how you fix that at this point. I think that you just kind of have to accept that, hey, you may have to start staggering the loot. With how the new season model is going to work, you may have to stagger some things. Like, oh, maybe you give like 2 weapons in the first expansion, and then you do 2 weapons as part of the refresh midway through that season on the way to Behemoth. Maybe you do that. Or maybe you do weapons for one, you do armor for another, you do a weapon refresh. I don't know. You gotta figure out something there, I think, to keep that community engaged. Doing the knockout system for the ghosts, the sparrows, the ships, the emblems, like that is a good start. I want to be clear, that's a good start. There needs to be some more. Yeah, we gotta have some other things in there. There's gotta be some more cosmetics worth chasing. I continue to come back to my thing. Put some trials weapon ornaments in there. You can do them for current exotic or for current legendaries. I actually think it would be really cool if you did one for Joxer's longsword or for Retrich's Esotek. I think that would be really cool to have some of those in there, because those are weapons you can earn from PvP. They're clearly not going away. Nothing really goes away anymore. They just get reissued eventually. Able to earn some ornaments for those guns. I think that would be really cool. Maybe a special trials ornament for the seasonal pursuit weapon would be something. Like there's got to be something. There's got to be other things worth earning to keep people engaged in this playlist, because people like me are going to dip once we've gotten our loot. I would love to get the Ghost, the Sparrow, the ship. If they ever did a skimmer, I would love to get all that. I'm okay with not having that right now because there is so much other stuff to do in the game. I feel that okay, I'm not like super pressed about this, at least not in Act 1. As it goes on, I'll probably be like, I really want to do this some more. You know, we're almost we're 3 weeks into the season. We've had 1 week of trials so far, because the first week was the dungeon, then we had trials, now we have Iron Banner. We're gonna have trials again next weekend. I've got opinions on it. Titan wrote in and said, Bolt Charge is allowing me to 2 bursts with Outbreak. Tiger Jesus said, Le Monarch with Bolt Charge. I believe Tiger Jesus said this was his first time making it to the Lighthouse. Closest I've ever been was 6-win streak during House of Wolves in the OG trials. It's been a struggle ever since. Finally feels nice to see my character make it. I felt the same way when I made it during the Lost rework, to finally get to the Lighthouse after so many years of just wanting to get there. I had a friend who was going every single weekend in D1. It felt so good to finally get there. Like I genuinely like got really emotional, because it's like that was the one thing that had eluded me in Destiny for so long, was making it to the Lighthouse. And I was one of those people. I was like, if I just make it once, I'll be happy. I don't care if it's on a week. If I do it on a weekend when it's like a shitty weapon or whatever. I can't not tell you the amount of times Eye of Soul has been the adept weapon when I've been able to make it. It just by like pure cosmic coincidence, it's always been when it's a terrible drop. But I enjoyed it. Ronnie says, I've been 7 times before this rework. This time I've been twice. I'll probably reset my card again here in a bit. I have some good, some not so good thoughts. Saint, I would say finishing 3 wins in a row, then finishing that card out for a guaranteed adept is nice. But when I got 7 wins in a row, I got 6 adepts and 10 ciphers. That is fucking wild. Like, the better you are, the more loot you get. I felt like I was getting showered in it when I'm not even that good. I didn't even hit a 3 streak. I didn't even hit a 3-win streak in this. And I felt like I was just showered in it. I was very, very excited. I still really liked it. It was a lot of fun. It's good. I think right now it's good. It was good. It was good. So, all things considered, and I think doing it with Exalted Truth was just such a good idea. Such a good idea. It immediately became like one of the most wanted weapons I've seen in trials in a very long time. Like, I think Igneous and Immortal are like the last 2 I really saw people go this ape shit for. So that also helps. It's always going to be more fun on a weekend when it's a really desirable weapon, because that's when you get more normies like me in there playing. So everybody wins. Everybody benefits from a healthier trials pool. I will continue to beat that into the ground. I don't really care what anybody else has to say. That is just a fact of life. The next step is getting me into comp, so I can go get that awesome Stasis Pulse, the new Redrixes. I'm very excited to get that. But hey, write in if you have any comments about how this has gone, how this revamp has gone. I would absolutely say right in. I want to hear what everybody else thinks about this. Last piece of business I really feel like we gotta get to, and then we have some questions to kind of end everything. So this dungeon. Let's talk Sundered Doctrine. Sundered Doctrine immediately is one of the coolest things. I feel like I say this every single dungeon. It's really fucking cool. It's really fucking cool. We're 2 for 2 on dungeons this year. Despite my misgivings about certain other activities, I don't remember the last time we had a bad dungeon. I think you have to go all the way back to Spire to find a dungeon that I was underwhelmed by. And I didn't even think that was like that bad in the moment, but it's the further we get away from Spire, the more and more clear it is that, oh wow, like it kind of stuck out like a sore thumb of this isn't really that great when you look at the other dungeons. Like it's this weird blip. If you go from Prophecy, if you create a straight line from Prophecy to now, it's like this weird little dip. Like everything else is just an A or S tier dungeon, I feel. Sundered Doctrine, I don't know if I would say that it's a top 2 dungeon, but it's pretty close. It's top 3. It's top 3 for me. I think this is awesome. This is a very interesting dungeon. If you did not like the symbol puzzles in VOW, you're not going to like this. And I can already tell you right now, this does not feel like something I'm going to go and run a lot of. I don't feel like I'm going to be farming this dungeon a ton outside of second encounter. This is one of those like, oh, once I get the armor, I'm probably done. I got the exotic to drop on my second full completion, which is really cool. I was very happy to get that. John and I got A1 Johnny and I both got double drops, and we each got it to drop in the same run, and much to Joasis's chagrin. So I think it's been fun. I've really enjoyed it. I think that this dungeon is so cool and so unique, and if you know lore, it's much more rewarding, which makes it even funnier to me. Is that this is better if you know the lore, because you essentially play two truths and a lie in the final encounter. But I'll start back at the beginning. Coming into Rolk's Pyramid, I actually thought we were going to start at the platform where we killed Rolk. To not do that and instead start just somewhere else in the pyramid, and it's a base where the hidden are all set up, I thought this was cool. And there's this whole quest line to be able to get the catalyst for the exotic and to be able to do the armor and weapon focusing similar to Vespers, which just requires you running this a whole bunch of times, doing some side shit, finding some rooms that are locked until you do this. I have not done any of that. I want to be really clear. I've not done any of that. I will do it over time, but right now I'm mainly getting ready to go run this on contest. By the time you're listening to this, I'll be preparing to run this on contest on the makeup day with dealer. But going through, I think first encounter is interesting. You know, you kill the lens keepers, you walk around with the lenses, you have to, connect the dots, essentially finish the, connect the dots, finish the story, etc., etc. This is cool. On a contest, it is timed. First lens you have, or first riddle, you have 3 minutes. Second, you have 4. Third, you have 5. It's just the timers are the most oppressive part of that to me. So I'm interested to see how this plays out, because I felt the timer in Vespers on first encounter was rough. That was really rough. Like I was finishing it with like no time to spare. Like the timer had hit 0 when we were dunking the final ball on our clear. But I think this is really, I think this is cool. I think, God, I cannot say this enough. I'm so over fucking Grim. I'm over the Grim. I'm over the Gunbats. That is my biggest takeaway from this entire dungeon and from the last 2 seasons. I'm fucking done with these guys. These are guys, we made fun of these guys in the final shape and in like Salvation's Edge, and they have beat my ass at every single opportunity since. Like even in Onslaught Salvation, they were pushovers. Starting with Contest of Elders, it's like they jacked up the difficulty with those guys, and I have just gotten my ass whooped ever since. I don't like it. I think this is rough. This is a whole dungeon with these motherfuckers. I am not the biggest fan of what has gone on with the Gunbat. Season of the Gunbat has not been super enjoyable for me. And it's just continued. We had Season of the Gunbat, and now we have Season of the Husk, and it's rough. It's really, really rough. The aggressive nature of them, it's funny, in a very roundabout way, plays into the lore behind the Husks. The Husks are in the Sundered Doctrine lore, and in some of the other lore you can read about, the Dread are implied to have been former dissidents of the Witness. They were ones that were cast out, and they were turned into these. So Sundered Doctrine is them trying to basically unmake themselves And, well, we come in and kind of murder them in their home, which is really fucked up when you think about it that way. Second encounter, so going to second encounter is an experience. It's an experience. You end up encountering like a mini Indiana Jones puzzle. You're wandering around in the dark for a little bit, then you find a little mini Indiana Jones style puzzle, which it's really fun. We were convinced there were secrets our first time through. I can't tell you the amount of times we died to that stupid ball. After we nailed it the first time, then we were like, oh, well, we'll go back and see if there's any secrets. And it took us like 7 tries to get through the hole again. That was a whole thing. That was a whole ass thing. The second encounter is the lock set. And again, we talk about unique encounters. And when I think about unique encounters in Destiny over the last couple of years, even looking back to Warlord's Ruin, which I like Warlord's Ruin, but when I think about like the combat encounters specifically, I'm like, oh, Big Scorn Captain, Abomination, and Big Taken Meatball. Oh boy. When I look at Vespers and I look at this, it feels very clear that the stakes have been raised. The encounters immediately feel more challenging and more rewarding when you get them done. It kind of feels akin to the first time that I did Prophecy or the first time that I did something like Duality with those mechanics. But even then, this goes beyond just like killing things. This is, you got to figure out puzzles. You got to do puzzles in the encounter. They have felt so much more raid-like, and I think that's really important if we're going to be dropping to one dungeon a year and one raid a year. It's so important that this feels like a raid, in my opinion. And I think they've been nailing that. I think they've really nailed that in a really, really special way. The Zotic lock set is really cool. I wish we would have figured it out sooner. Like, each of the symbols corresponds to what you spawn in, and they stack on each other too. The amount of fucking ogres that we had in my first clear is just insane. And then we all just figured out, oh, kill, stop, stop, stop. Yeah. And bolt charge, go burr. Yeah, which a lot of us hadn't figured out yet at that point. At least I hadn't. So you do the lock set, and the way it takes damage is really weird because the boss is like hidden underneath the map. So it's why things like Anarchy work so well here, because the damage gets distributed between everything. I thought that was really cool. It's fun. It's cool. I like that. You push the eye. We joked maybe you have to push one of these Shrieker eyes into the hole, and sure enough, you do. You do another little mini puzzle, and you're at final encounter. Final encounter is cool when you do Two Truths and a Lie. I like that the symbols stay in the same place every single run, because holy shit, it would get so annoying running around looking for these. What was the most annoying part for us, I think, was trying to figure out that there were other rooms, because we were like, oh well, there's not any symbols. Like, what the fuck are we supposed to do? And then we found the room off to the left first, and we are like, oh, okay. Even though that door is definitely a death trap, we found that. That was interesting. And we still weren't getting it. We were getting it, and we kind of stumbled on it by accident, figuring out they were trying to tell stories. And we tried it with, inputting, well, this is what happens in the lore, and nothing happens. So we did it with the other way, and it would take the shield down. But it was only taking it like part way because certain other things were still lit up. We found the second room eventually, and once we found the second room, we were cooking. Yeah, we were just cooking at that point. That is, again, you want to talk about an interesting encounter. That dude constantly suspends you, and it is so annoying. It is so aggravating that he's constantly suspending you. But we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with it. I think it's very interesting. I like the mechanics of this fight. I think the mechanics of all 3 encounters are really cool. I think it also proves that you don't have to have a big old boss to be a good encounter. We kind of see this in... It's not a technical encounter to me, but we see this with the Maze and Ranix in Vesper's Host. That's a very cool one to me. The first encounter for me here is very interesting in a way that, yeah, it's teaching you these mechanics, but you only use the mirrors one more time, and that's to open up the door to final encounter. It's more of it's getting you familiar with like the glyphs are going to tell a story, and I really like that. Yeah, the glyphs are telling a story the whole time, and that's cool because that's something that you use repeatedly throughout the dungeon. Overall loot, I don't know how I feel about the armor here. The armor, I like the pyramid architecture on the armor, and I think if you combine this with like Salvation's Edge armor, it looks a lot better. It's rough. It's not bad. It's definitely rough though. Rough would maybe be a bit of an understatement, but it's a little unique. It's a little rough. The weapons are kick ass. All four of the weapons are absolute bangers. You have the Void Slug Shotty, you have the two burst Strand Hand Cannon, you have I believe it's an Arc Scout, it's the only weapon I don't have, and then you have the Strand Trace. The Strand Trace might be my favorite weapon ever in a dungeon. Well, Velocity Baton notwithstanding. This is maybe my favorite one. This was awesome. This is a really, really cool gun. You get a brand new perk on it, Detonator Beam. Detonator Beam is just chef's kiss. Chef's kiss. I haven't gotten it on this. I got it on the new Arc Trace from Iron Banner. But that is a really, really cool perk already. Really a big fan. Need to use the exotic a little bit more, but yeah, I think the loot is good. Second encounter is absolutely where you want to go to the farm. You want to go to farm. If you want the scout, I don't know what to tell you because I don't think the scout drops from that encounter. I think that's the only thing that cannot drop from that encounter is the scout. So good luck, have fun. I think scout can only drop from first and third encounters, which is it's always annoying when that happens, but I do like the idea that once you've done the whole quest, you can focus it whenever you want to, which is nice. Uh, I think I really need to play this dungeon a couple more times to like really form really good thoughts on it beyond like, yeah, it's kick ass, it's really good. I don't like just providing that as a okay, so I'm wrong. Here's the loot table. I was actually completely wrong on this. So the loot table for armor or for weapons, excuse me. First encounter, you can get the scout, you can get the hand cannon, you can get the trace. Second encounter, you can get scout, shotgun, trace, and then final encounter, you can get any of the weapons. So I was totally wrong. The other thing is you can only get the chest piece from final encounter. You can only get chest piece from final encounter, and of course you get the what you call it, the class item from doing the quest, just like before. I don't have a problem with this. I think that it incentivizes you to go run that final encounter, but again, like beyond the quest line, the chest piece, and the exotic, there's not a whole lot of reason to go past second encounter, in my opinion. This is something that, like, if I'm going to go farm these weapons, I'm probably just going to get second encounter checkpoint and run second encounter a lot. First isn't bad, it's just time consuming. It's just time consuming more than anything, I feel, to do first encounter. Um, but that second encounter is not bad at all. Even third with a competent team, third is not bad. If you scrap something at checkpoint bot, it's not bad. I would actually rather farm second or third than first, just because first is I don't know. It can take a while. It can be time consuming, but you can pretty much one, if not guaranteed, two phase the boss, and then second encounter. I mean, you can do that in under a minute. You can just do like you can do that in like 90 seconds. Not under a minute, maybe, but close. You can do it in like 60 to 90 seconds, minute and a half per run, easily. On normal, I feel so. That's going to be a good one. That's going to be a good encounter to go farm for Artifice Armor. At least for helmet, arms, and legs. Again, I found myself really enjoying this. I think this is a really cool dungeon. Um, so, yeah, it's a cool dungeon. Uh, dungeon rankings off the top of my head. I don't have anybody here to like really talk about the dungeon with, so that's why you're just kind of getting like some shots from the hip here in terms of my thoughts about Sundered Doctrine. This is the most haphazarded review I've done of a dungeon in a long time. I found myself not as engaged this time around. Not that it's a and that's nothing to say about the quality of this dungeon. I've honestly gone back and forth on if this is like 2 or 3 in my book. Um, so in last place for our dungeon list, for the record, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 10. We officially have 10 dungeons out as of now. And if I had to hazard a guess, I would have to go all the way back again. Like I'd have to go all the way back to Spire of the Watcher to say that there's the dungeon that I'm not like super thrilled with. Spire of the Watcher was our 6th dungeon for the record. So, and I mean going back even further, and I wasn't even disappointed in Spire. I think Spire is fun, but you can do it in less time than you can the Barrow Dyad mission. For God's sake, I would have to go all the way back to like Pit of Heresy to actually find one that I was like, yeah, I'm actually disappointed in this. And I think Shattered Throne is still really cool. So Pit of Heresy comes in last. Pit of Heresy is 10th. It's not even a question for me. Pit of Heresy is 10th. For all the reasons that we talked about before. I'm going to say something really controversial. I've got Shattered Throne at number 9 just because I think that we've gotten way better. This is a similar situation to how I've started to feel about things like Vault and even how I've started to feel about King's Fall in recent years. The Salvation's Edge raid really made me reconsider how I felt about certain raids. Even though I haven't like officially updated them like on my rankings, and I probably won't until the Apollo raid comes out. I've had to go back and start reconsidering like, man, we've really just like passed where we were with D1. Like at this point it like becomes the challenge and this and that. But like there's a reason why we still rate those so highly. Shattered Throne and Pit of Heresy though don't do anything like super unique. So I've got both of those back there. At number 8, this is where things are going to start getting controversial. At number 8, I've got Spire of the Watcher. You know, for all the things I talked about before, it's super easy to just blow through. You can just destroy that dungeon. It's like a quick 20-minute jaunt. At number 7, again, I'm going to be a little controversial. At number 7, I've got Grasp of Avarice. I don't think Grasp of Avarice is bad, but holy shit, the Sparrow section and the Taking Down the Shield are two just excruciatingly long, annoying parts of this dungeon. Like, the Sparrow race isn't bad if you nail it the first try, but man, the Taking Down the Shield every single time is just annoying. I fucking hate that. I fucking hate that encounter. It doesn't even drop great loot. I fucking hate that encounter. That encounter alone almost has Grasp below Spire. I'm not even gonna lie. I've gone through. Is that 6? Yeah, that was my 7th place. So 6th place, in 6th place I've got Ghost of the Deep. I don't think Ghost of the Deep is a bad dungeon. I want to be really clear. Everything from here on out is awesome. I would even say from Grasp of Avarice forward. Grasp of Avarice is really cool outside of that fucking shield. I've got not duality. I've got Ghost of the Deep here because, man, the water traversal sections have just not aged well. It has not aged well. That takes so much time every single time you do it. That is the main reason, and I think Final Encounter can be a gigantic slog. That can be a gigantic slog if you're not doing optimal DPS, and let's be honest, a lot of folks are not doing optimal DPS in there. That's a fucking slog. At number 5, I've got Duality. And I think Duality is a really cool dungeon, but again, the jankiness of the bell mechanic has never quite been fixed. It's still really annoying. I think this is a really cool concept. I think shooting the bells was a really cool idea. I think the fact that the dungeon takes place inside of Callus's mind and you're fighting his vision of Keitel is amazing. I think that's really, really cool that you're inside Callus's mind, traversing his mind. It really started to push the boundaries of what we thought you could do with telling a story inside of a dungeon. In a lot of ways, this was, I think a lot of us forget, Duality was kind of like the grand return to dungeoning. We hadn't had a dungeon. We'd had Grasp, I guess, but there was such a long wait between Prophecy and Grasp of Avarice that it was like, oh wow, we had to kind of circle back to this, and then you get Duality during Season of the Haunted. And that's where I think dungeons really went from being, oh, this is a cool thing, to holy shit, these are awesome because they've got great loot, and they've got great loot tables and this and that. Like the armor is really cool in this. They're telling stories in here. These are really important. Number 4. This is another one where I feel like I'm about to make some enemies. I've got Warlord's Ruin at number 4. I really had to think long and hard about this because I love Warlord's Ruin. It is a D&D ass dungeon. I think getting out of the jail cells is such a unique experience. And I think putting the loot right there was just such a tantalizing thing for so many people. I love how you're immediately in first encounter too when you're just immediately there. The traversal sections are what stick out to me most in this dungeon. I don't really love any of the encounters. I don't think they're bad. I just don't love them. I like the lighting the torches to stay warm approach. I think that was really cool when they do it in second encounter, but there's really not like a huge point beyond that. So like we don't use it really during the boss fight. So it's fine. It's fine. Warlords also really, like, outside of Buried Bloodline, didn't have me wanting to come back to it. And I got Buried Bloodline on my first or second clear, I believe. So I really did not find myself wanting to come back to it outside of doing the Catalyst quest. And that dungeon is where we started seeing like the Catalyst quests. I wouldn't even say that. I guess the Catalyst quests, like in terms of them being like unique experiences, probably started with Ghosts. I'd say Ghosts was where we were starting those with like Navigator and whatnot. Third place. I'm going to put Prophecy. I'm just such a huge sucker for Prophecy, and I think a lot of it's because of the locale. We're inside the realms of the Nine, which is still just one of the weirdest things. Why we're there in the Prophecy dungeon. I love the cube room. I think is still so fucking cool. I think the racing on the ribbons is really cool. I love how, everything is just inverted and always shifting on you. Like, outside of the very weak first encounter, this is a really cool dungeon. It introduced the ideas of dunking light and dark. You have to be in dark in order to get dark modes. You have to be in light and killing things in order to get light modes. I thought that was cool. I like how you have to constantly be moving with the boss. That's awesome for all the reasons we've discussed. At number 2, I've got Sundered Doctrine. That's where I'm going to finally slot this in at. I was debating. There was just no way I could put Prophecy or Warlords ahead of this personally. I think the story that is being told here is really cool. I like the mechanics a lot. The fact that we have an encounter that is based more around puzzles, kind of similar to Verity, than combat, I really, 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 really enjoy. I like that a lot. That's a lot of fun for all the reasons we talked about. And then number 1, we did an entire episode on Vesper's Host. You guys can go listen to it. Vesper's Host is still number 1 dungeon to me. The thing about every dungeon is I think every single one of them has a flaw. I don't think we've had a flawless dungeon experience. My gripe with Vespers ultimately comes down to that final encounter. I think that final encounter is rough. It's rough. I think there's a little too much goop shooting down, a little bit too much laser goop. And just, man, if you don't have an optimal team, you're looking at like 3 DPS phases. That can be really rough, and it's just such a slog to get to DPS each time, even when you know what you're doing. It is such a slog, and like if you happen to wipe when you're like, oh, you're on like 3rd DPS phase, and you happen to wipe, good luck. Yeah, good luck. You're redoing it, and I just think it's a slog. But it's fine. It's cool. It's still one of the best experiences. I'm still looking for that 10 out of 10 experience. And I feel like we've gotten that with raids several times. I would look at, obviously, I've spoken very highly about Salvation's Edge. I think it's the best piece of content they've ever made in Destiny. Vespers is pretty close. Vespers is like up there in that conversation, but raids continue to be the pinnacle. And this is like, Never Talk to Me and My Son Again is essentially how I feel about like raids and dungeons. I'd put Salvation's Edge up there. I'd put Kingsfall. I'd put Last Wish. And it's funny, like, I just talked about how I don't think nostalgia should influence rankings, and I still have VOG rated so highly. VOG is still like a top 5 or 6 raid for me. And it's purely because VOG did something that had not been done in video games, like in shooters before. And I think that's part of why VOG will always get the benefit of the doubt for me, and why it will always just be this thing. Like, the dungeons in Destiny have always pushed the limit of what you can do in an endgame experience. And I feel like dungeons have finally gotten to that point. Specifically, I think they've gotten to that point with Vespers and Sundered Doctrine finally. We are knocking on the door of them being like, hey, these are like 10 out of 10 experiences. I mean, and you can be a 10 out of 10 experience, I think, without being flawless. Like, there truly are very few flawless experiences in Destiny. And I would argue SE is one. I think Last Wish. Like, if you're gonna pick 2 raids to show anybody, I think those are the 2 things you show them. If you're gonna pick a dungeon to show them, I think you pick either Vespers or you pick Sundered Doctrine. And if you're gonna pick exotic missions, it's really hard to argue against Presage. It's hard to argue against Dual Destiny. Um, I wouldn't put Barrow Dyad up there just yet. I mean, obviously Whisper and Zero Hour are legendary for a reason. Like, those are ones you would show there. And if you're going to show a campaign, like, you're going to show them the Taken King, you're going to show them Forsaken, you're going to show them the Witch Queen, you're going to show the Final Shape. Like, those are what you're going to pick from one of those. Like, we finally have these experiences with dungeons where, like, hey, it's not just like a cool side thing you go do and you can be done with this job in like 20-30 minutes. It's like, hey, this is an actual end game experience for 3 people, and it's really well constructed. And I'm so glad we have finally gotten there on Dungeon Discourse. I'm looking through the I am looking through the what you call it's, the TWABs from the last couple weeks. Nothing like really super jumping out to me on a lot of this. Hollow chips are here if you care about hollow chips. I think they look like shit personally, and I would not be caught dead with hollow chips. There's some stuff in the there's some stuff you can go look at in the shop. There is a Verity's Brow ornament coming in Frontiers with, as they describe it, less bones, more lasers. This looks cool. It looks very like Splinter Cell-esque, which is a little bit of a weird choice, I think, for Verities, but I still like it. The other thing that I would call out here is, oh man. So there was an error when they released the season that class glaives and swords could be used on any character. They are going to allow this to stay a thing. They're going to let this ride. A fun example of a bug becoming a feature, as they say. Quick list of notes taken from the conversation that they had at the studio is that animations may look a bit weird given class-based swords are a bit older. This can create fun opportunities for players to create videos, art, and other things based on classes and different stances. Specifically, the Naruto run with the Hunter Sword is going to be really funny. Class-based glaives open up interesting new build crafting opportunities in the future. We'll be keeping a close eye on how these glaives are performing across all 3 classes. The goal is to ensure they feel the most powerful on the class they originally designed for. Good, as they should, because that's how they were built. The core of the feedback for Quick Fang and Gold Tusk swords revolves around player fantasies of being a ninja or swordmaster, so we're going to use this feedback to inspire future animations. I love that. No promises on timelines or anything like that, but gives us some fun creative space to work with for Titans and Warlocks. So, big fan there. I personally just like that I can use Crown Splitter on a Titan or on a Hunter now. So, big fan, big fan. GMs are back on Tuesday, and of course, Adept Palindrome is dropping. The featured nightfall is going to be Hypernet Current with Haste as a modifier. So never stop moving and bring your best overload and unstoppable weapons. Adept Palindrome, man. I can't wait. I absolutely can't wait for this. I think this is gonna be awesome. This is the Exalted Truth Trials weekend of GMs. Like, everyone's gonna be going and running this next week. So I think that's really cool. I am a big fan of the fact that we are getting another weekend of Sundered Doctrine. I've talked about that. I'm very excited. There's also an Osmium Air emblem that's going to be given away between February 25th and March 4th, 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. on those. For certain teams, they're going to be doing it. So I Really, really look forward to this. I personally think that that emblem is awesome, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I always find these cool I always see these cool emblems, and I'm just like, yeah, I have no hope of ever getting these, sadly, as much as I would like them. So it is what it is. What else do we have? I think that's it. I'm not gonna read these fashion feedbacks anymore. Y'all can check that out if you want to. So there is a huge, huge, long list of known issues. Y'all can go look at that. There's a lot there though. So I don't think that we have anything else. We just have a couple questions. So yeah, we just have a couple questions to get to really fast. And these are legitimately going to be very quick. Jiggly Panda writes in, we already answered Jiggly Panda's first question, what are your thoughts on Oryx being back? I think it's cool. I think it's an interesting approach to keep Oryx in the story, but holy shit, I really hope this is the end of Oryx. We killed it. We beat him in Taken King. We beat him in King's Fall. We have fought his Nightmare a couple of times. We fought nightmares of him and Crota. We have fought to keep Zulamok from resurrecting him. We have killed a wizard sent by the Lucent Hive to resurrect him. I am over Oryx. I'm over Oryx. I'm over the Hive Gods as a whole. Like, I really hope this is the end of their storyline, but knowing my luck, it's not going to be, unfortunately. Jiggly Panda writes in, what are your thoughts on the leaks of Redacted returning? So the whole reason that I am not saying the name of this, I actually did not know that this was a leak until this was posted. So as a result, I'm not actually going to say what it is. If you want to see it, you can go to the questions thread from this week in Discord. I'm going to leave it in there. It's nothing like groundbreaking, but it is something that was speculated for. I've seen this speculated for like 3 expansions straight now that it's coming back. If it really is coming back, which again, I am taking this with like the barest minimum of, grain of salt that it's actually coming back, considering like the people I have seen sourcing it, quote unquote. If it does come back, cool. I really don't care about this weapon. I'm gonna be totally honest. I think it was more of a gimmick when it was introduced in, D1. I'll just go ahead and say it. It's a returning D1 exotic. I think it was more of a gimmick than anything, and I just personally don't really care. I'm glad that so many people like this, and I think a lot of that's because like they're going to go make trick shot videos about it, this and that. I am completely unmoved. This does nothing for me. Red Death coming back was way more exciting to me because they found a way to make Red Death work in D2 without breaking the game completely. So I don't really care. I'm kind of over D1 weapons. I don't really want anything else back. The only thing I still want from D1 is Wrath of the Machine. Justice for Wrath of the Machine. These Star Wars cosmetics better pay for Wrath of the Machine. They better pay for it because I want this really badly. I really want Wrath of the Machine in D2. And I'm probably never going to get it. I'm starting to accept that. Tiger Jesus writes in with our last question. Do the new aspects make up for the fact we did not get new exotic armor this season? Yes. The new Titan aspect is bananas. The new Titan and Warlock aspects are bananas. The Hunter one is really, really good in PvP. Like, it's like it's not groundbreaking, game breaking in a lot of ways in PvP. I really, really love it. It's obviously for that one, for me, it's been a much bigger hassle in Iron Banner than it was in just in my personal experience than it was in Trials. But I like it. I really like the new Hunter aspect. I don't know if it necessarily makes it up, but this is the argument I made to people. They have to do things like this regularly to keep you playing the other subclasses because all we've been on for almost a straight year now is Prismatic. With good reason. And that being said, I'm glad they have not added these to Prismatic. I don't think you need to. You got to give reasons to play those other classes. Now, if you want to take an aspect that's been around for, a millennia and put it on Prismatic from those classes, sure. I think Prismatic is eventually going to be the end-all be-all. Yeah, I do eventually, but I don't know if it'll be in the next year or two. I think it would almost take a hypothetical Destiny 3 for that to happen. And is there a subclass you wish had a new aspect? Yeah, Stasis. Stasis really needs some new. Stasis and Strand need some love. They need some love. We've seen Hunter Arc get completely rebuilt. We're now seeing a new aspect for Hunter Void, and two for Arc on Warlock and Titan, as well as there were some new aspects introduced during Prismatic as well. For Hunters, we got Ascension. We got Gunpowder Gamble a couple years ago. Like, everybody kind of got a pass during the 3.0s. It's way past time for Stasis to get some love. Stasis and Strand really, really, really need some love in that regard. I also want to see some new grenade options. I'd really like to see some new grenade options for both of those. I understand why we pushed so hard in the Prismatic, obviously, over the last year. I understand why, Strand maybe didn't get anything because, hey, that just got introduced in Lightfall. Stasis, it's well past time for Stasis to get some love. I think Stasis needs some more melee options, too, if we're being honest, across the classes. I think more grenade melee options for both would be really, really nice, as well as the aspects of it all. But yeah, I don't think this is... I think, this is fine. We don't always need new exotic armor. I would rather you put your time into making exotic armor that matters, and if you can't, like if you come up with an idea and you're like, oh man, we don't want to tie this to an exotic armor, then I would like for you to be like, well, hey, we'll punt this for like a few months, or we'll punt this for like 3 to 6 months, and we'll try and see if we can work it in as a new aspect instead. I think that would be better, personally. Beyond that, I don't know if we really have anything else. Yeah, I don't think we have really anything else here. I'm going to be totally honest. I think that's gonna about do it. Yeah, I think that's gonna about do it. So I want to thank everybody for listening. There's no watching, but anybody listening to this episode of Tower Casual. Sorry that's a little bit short. Again, I'm feeling really under the weather. I don't have my other member of the fire team flying in with me. It has been a really weird week, but I promise, despite my melancholiness, I really have enjoyed Sundered Doctrine. I really enjoyed that. I've really enjoyed Barrow Dyad. I think this first act has been just chef's kiss. Less time gating though going forward, please, Bungie. Like you gotta figure out the time gating of all this. Maybe you give us the weapon and then like, oh, in Act 2 maybe is when you would drop like the catalyst stuff for it. I don't know. There's got to be better ways to do this, but I do appreciate that they're still experimenting. Just the artificial time gating is really frustrating. Like, oh, you can get like some of the stuff, but you can't get the rest of it until Act 2. That's just do it all or nothing, baby. So, interested to see what the rest of this holds. Of course, we'll be back in 2 weeks, which puts us, I believe, a week or two ahead of the next story drop. So we'll be back with an episode for you roughly on the 7th of March. And we'll see how things fall for us at that point. But that's roughly when the next episode would be dropping to your feeds that morning. We're going to go over weapons. I want to talk about dungeon weapons more in depth. I want to talk about both of these exotics. And I want to be able to talk about some of the seasonal weapons because I finally am getting some testing in and I'm very, very excited. We have Wither Horde at home has fully arrived. I really like Lost Signal, but Psychopomp is just that thing's disgusting. But I say all that to have a good evening, have a good day, have a good weekend, whatever it is. And if you are going to enter a contest, may the odds be ever in your favor. And I will see you next time.